Hi, everybody.
Hey guys, welcome to the Office 365 or M365 Pulse. You are here with Tamara, myself, and Tom this week as we go through and look at roadmap updates. There's been a lot of exciting things. We obviously had Ignite not too far ago, so there's still been some cool action going through. We don't have the longest list this morning, but we'll be going through and discussing updates and changes to the 365 roadmap as we always do. If you're new or haven't watched us before, we will go through and cover four areas technically, but we always go in order of how Microsoft qualifies their releases. So at the beginning or at the start of the show, we're going to talk about in development. This is the first classification that Microsoft puts updates, which is they've announced that they're going to do it. There's intention there, but they're really just letting people know this is on the way. Once it's progressed for a little bit from in development, it moves on to rolling out. When it goes into rolling out, that means it's in some flavor of release. Now, if you've consumed Microsoft products or been doing M365 for a while, you realize that's a very nuanced statement. There's a lot of levels of release based off of what settings you have your tenant set to, what release cycle you're in. But regardless, everything that means it's in the process of rolling out but not fully there falls under the rolling out category. And finally, it eventually moves into launch, which means it should be available for everyone in the clouds that that feature is scoped to. So not every feature is scoped to every cloud. It could be this is just for commercial, or this is for the DoD or for GCC High. And then finally, once in a great while, including today, we will see items show up in the canceled section. And so we like to discuss that at the end of the show. But so getting started, Tamara, you want to go ahead and give us a start and pick up one that sounds fun to you from the in development section?
Sure. So, Microsoft Teams delete chats. With delete chat, users can permanently delete entire conversations from their view. This does not affect any other user in that chat that can see that chat. So, you're just deleting it for yourself. I don't know how I feel about this because we already have hide and we can call it back up if we need it. I know I'm going to delete the chat that 3 weeks later I'm going to be like, so
I see this as a good thing. So I have a growing team of people that I work with, and largely, rather than talking in the team, we specifically have a chat that has everyone added to it that we go in and
yeah,
chat in, which is great. But when you have 10 plus people in a chat, there can be tangents of conversations that go out about stuff that's just kind of random. I see this as a way, in theory, if I was so inclined, I could curate that channel a little bit more as I wanted to, therefore make sure that only the relevant information is up to me. You know, when we go off on a tangent like candles for 3 hours, I could, in theory, go in and remove the candle chat in our chat and therefore have stuff just more specific for work. I do like the fact that this is a thing that's only for you, and as I'm sure you can tell because it's only for you. This is obviously not going to change anything as far as like retention or storage or logging or anything like that. So
right. And then Microsoft Forms got a lot of love in development. So instant poll in Teams meetings, multiple question polls in Teams meetings. And this I'm really kind of excited about. I have no idea how I'm going to use it, but I will find a way. In Forms, support image in polls for Teams meetings. So you can now add images to questions in the polls in the poll app in Teams, and images from the local file can be used to increase engagement and better explain your questions to attendees. So I like that. And then there's also one where you can add an image as a choice in a survey or quiz in Microsoft Forms. So those are the ones I like. Forms. I like Forms.
Well, I think that last one is really cool because let's say you were trying to get people's feedback on a logo. It's like, which logo do you like best? And you can put the 3 or 4 logo choices as answer options. And so people are not having to go out and look at the logo, come back and answer the survey. They can just see, here are the 4 logos, pick which one you like the best. So I
I
think
like how
that
Tom
makes a
had a
lot of sense.
legitimate work example. My head was like, "Are we ordering pizza or burgers for lunch?" That's where I initially went
I
with
think
this
that
one.
is perfectly legit.
Yeah, at first when I looked at it, when I was reviewing the list, I thought, and why would I want to do that. And then immediately I thought, oh, if you're trying to get feedback on logos or stuff like that, that makes sense. So I like that idea. So she took a lot of the ones I was going to talk about. But another thing, because Teams did get a fair amount of attention this time, new file apps in Teams. So it's one place for all your content across chats, channels, meetings, and M365. Manage, organize, and locate the content you need quickly and easily. In addition, wayfinding is now more consistent and familiar to users. So I think the more content you can see in one place, no matter where they have to pull it from, is a good thing, because it's hard to say, well, did I check here? Did I check there? Did I check this other place? So that's a good thing to have. And I'll go ahead and do one more before I hand it over to Adam. And that is in Microsoft Teams, mention everyone in chat. So just recently, they had put one out where you could say at team owners, and it would mention all the people who are owners in the teams. And at the time I said, yeah, I can see them building on this one and doing some additional ones that are automatic. Well, guess what? So now you can at mention individuals like you've always been able to do, but now you can do at mention everyone. And all participants in the chat will receive a notification removing the hassle of mentioning each person's name one by one or missing somebody. So again, everybody will still be able to see the chat. That doesn't change. But the fact that they get a pop-up notification or whatever notification avenue they use to be told that, hey, there's something out there that I want everyone to look at. So I think that's a really good change.
Yeah, I don't know how I fully feel about this one as someone who spends a decent amount of time in Discord, which is a modern communication platform that's used in gaming a lot. You can kind of join multiple servers and stuff in Discord, and they've had this functionality for forever where you can go in and at mention people or even at mention everyone. A lot of people use at mention everyone when at mention everyone is probably not necessarily needed. I'm a little worried this is just going to create extra noise for me, because people will go in and decide they need to at mention everyone and mention something that maybe isn't actually relevant to everyone, or they're giving oh, hey, just want to remind everyone of this, and it's just like, okay, cool. Did you really need to
Ping everyone.
I kind of see right now, I kind of see my at mentions as a way to draw attention to an important item, similar to if you do like a high importance notification on an email or something. It has a similar levity to me when we go through and do stuff. And I feel like
at 3 a.m.
Yeah, and so I feel like going through and having an at mention to everyone, I feel like, one, that's going to dull the levity some, because I'm going to start getting mentioned on stuff that actually doesn't necessarily matter as much. And two, I just think this is going to create more at mentions when it doesn't necessarily need to be there. Now, I can see the use case, to Microsoft's credit, to Tom's explanation. I can see there are cases where maybe you actually do potentially need to do this, but I guess not that I don't trust the design of the feature by Microsoft. I don't trust the end user implementation of the feature that's been designed by Microsoft, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Adam, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I'm not going to do too many nerdy ones today. I think there's a lot of cool stuff that you guys have already talked to related to forums, related to teams, related to some of the stuff related to things like that. But there were a couple that I saw that I thought were kind of interesting. One that I actually see as potentially being beneficial to my team. They're adding a OneNote notebook viewer for the Teams mobile app. So y'all have probably heard me, if you've watched the show, talk about it before. My team uses the junk out of OneNote in a very, very good way. When we go through and do meetings with customers, we basically try to track every meeting we're doing inside of OneNote. So that way, if someone's out of the office, it's very easy to pick up where you left off with them and stuff like that. And so our OneNote is very robust and has a lot of good information into it. And I encourage my team to have the Teams app. We have enterprise voice, so everyone has a phone number associated with Teams. And I tell them, hey, in the evenings and stuff, watch your phone. If you need to go to a doctor's appointment, that's fine. Take it. I've had situations before where a customer has asked me a question, where I've wanted to go back and reference something inside of OneNote. And previously, if you wanted to do this, the only way to do it was if you actually had the OneNote app for your phone as well too, where I'd go through and I'd get a notice on Teams, and I'd have to go through and find OneNote, or I'd get a notice or a question from a customer on Teams. I'd be like, all right, cool, I need to get up and go back to my computer to find this information. The fact that this is going to be integrated in one app, to me, who's someone who's a workaholic and has a hard time separating my work-life balance, I see this as a situation like I'm downstairs doing a cigar in the evening. I get a question from a customer. I can just really quickly hop into OneNote from my Teams client in the same section, find the answer, go back and respond to them, and never have to like get up, never have to get back on the computer. So maybe a little bit of the blurring lines personally for my work-life balance, but I do that anyways. I see this as making my work-life balance a little bit better because I can do it all in one app, all in one location.
Cool. Actually, there was one other one out there that I wanted to bring forth because it made the list initially and then it was canceled / postponed, and now it's back on the list again. And that's view and navigate the org chart via Org Explorer. I think that's really cool. And when I was playing with it when it first hit the tenant and preview, I'm like, this looks cool because you can drill up and down, but then it went away. And I think what they were finding out was that people's Active Directory structures weren't all that robust and they didn't have the right information. So they pulled it. Apparently they've reworked it and it's back out there now, due in December. So I'm really curious to see how that looks when it comes back out, because I thought it was a great idea.
Final thing I'll say from my side that I thought was cool that I could see specifically going through and having some help for certain tenants. If you have federated partners, so you have an organization that you're federated with, so that way you can go through and do like organizational sharing with them, they're adding a feature that you can basically easily go through and do group calling. So you can basically go in the same way that like if you're chatting with your coworkers, you can say, oh, start a call, and it will call all of them. You can basically do the same with federated or users inside of your organization as well. So let's say I'm working closely with Microsoft on something, our tenants are federated, I'll have the ability to just easily start a group call that includes them in it too. For certain organizations, they will never use this and it doesn't matter to them. But the organizations that do have federated partners that they collaborate with a lot, this is actually a pretty positive feature that's being released.
Very cool.
Anyone else have anything in development?
I'm ready to go into
Nope,
rolling out.
I'm good.
Let's go ahead and move on and move into rolling out. Tom, why don't you go ahead and start us?
Let's see, which one of the three that I've got flagged do I want to talk about? One of them is Outlook for the web contact deduplication. I'll take that one just because I like that word. So when you have contacts out there, if you've ever had a contact, Gmail, whatever, you've got like 14 versions of Bob S. Smith, Bob Smith. And it's like, how do I get these? Yeah, Bob. How do you get these all combined without having to do a lot of laborious, well, I've got this phone number and I need to combine that here. This is pretty much going to be able to go in and use the deduplication feature. I'm assuming it will also merge information. So if Bob has two different phone numbers, when Bob gets deduplicated, both of those phone numbers should be in the deduplicated item that remains. So I think that's a really good idea. Looking forward to seeing that one.
Tamara?
Oh, I've got a couple. So, and I think we've gone over most of them. Microsoft Teams, delete or rename files in a channel and in your OneDrive folder in Teams. So you can do that there. And then also the Teams calendar now includes scheduling form pop-out.
That's
so you can
really
have
cool.
that popped out and look at something else, and which I find very interesting. And then this, I just got a question on this yesterday, which is Microsoft Teams supports PSTN, dial in, dial out, and call me attendees in meetings to join breakout rooms. I didn't know this. But if you dialed into a meeting, you could not be put into a breakout room.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And this just came up in a webinar yesterday. Lady asked about it. And now I can let her know that it'll still be a while before it comes to her tenants. But it is rolling out right now to worldwide and GCC.
Cool.
I thought the Teams calendar pop-out thing was super cool.
Mhm.
I use Teams more than almost any other app that I have in my day-to-day work, except maybe Outlook because of this problem. While the Teams calendar section is cool in Teams, this was always an issue. If you ever wanted to reference like chats you were looking at or information inside of a Teams channel where you're going through and looking at files or things like that, and then you tried to take that information and move it to like schedule a Teams meeting, it would just close the first thing you were looking at
Right.
because, and I didn't realize this before until reading the description. The reason it did that is those are all separate apps inside of Teams and it only ran one app at a time. But basically, people gave feedback that that's annoying. So having the calendar pop out so you can then still be doing something else in Teams while doing the scheduling. Right now, I just do all of my scheduling still through Outlook for the most part because of this functionality. This will bring it more in line where I can see myself, well, I'm just going to be using the Teams app to do a lot of this stuff now and do my scheduling from there, which is kind of cool.
Well, in addition to only popping out, like if you do a new calendar entry, it'll pop that out into a separate one so you can look at other stuff. You can also pop out existing calendar entries out there. So if you're trying to pull data from 3 different prior calendar entries, you can pop all 3 of them out plus your new one, have all 4 of those as separate panels, and work your way through that. And again, still have your Teams client open. So I think that's a really cool change.
I have a couple things I'll mention that I just thought are kind of cool. First and foremost, just because I've done this before and I was just like, surely there's a way to do this and I'm just an idiot, but apparently not. Microsoft Teams delete or rename a file in a channel or in your Teams. So up until now, if you had a file that you saved into like OneDrive or saved into a SharePoint document library, and you're going through to do that, like it's sitting in the file section of Teams, and you wanted to rename that file, you just had to save as a new file name, and then it would go in and save a new file as it in there, and then you would then have to go in and delete your old file. But like you'd lose all your version history and stuff if you did that. But how it classified and organized it was by the file name, so you couldn't actually rename a file. All you could do is save a new copy of the file under the new name that you wanted. And this matters for me sometimes because sometimes I'll be going through and putting together something that I'm ultimately going to share with a customer, and I have like working or first draft or something as the name. I get to the point that it's moving from a first draft to a finished copy. Well, then I just have to save a new thing, but then I don't have any of my working drafts in there unless I leave it as a file. So the fact that you can go in and change the file name is going to be good and something I'm looking forward to. And then the second one that was on there that I thought was just kind of cool, Excel insert in cell images with the new image function. If you've ever tried to insert a picture into Excel, it does not work and does not format properly. It basically just have the image sitting there like floating over your Excel cells, which didn't really make much sense. It seems like they've added a new function that's specifically designed so you could actually put in images into cells and it will resize and stuff properly for you, which this maybe doesn't matter for a lot of the stuff you do day to day if you're actually using Excel the way it was meant. But half the time I'm doing Excel, I'm trying to put together a spreadsheet for a client that needs to be presentable in some way. So I'm going through and maybe even having images or having stuff like that related to the client that I'm trying to do. So I thought this update was kind of cool.
There's one other one that I'll. Oh,
go ahead. No.
I was going to say, Microsoft Viva meeting category insights coming to digest email. So if you in your calendar tend to categorize things, so usually I'll categorize like team meetings with one shade of color, and I'll do customer meetings with a different shade, and company meetings will be a third shade. What these digest emails now coming out will do is it'll include a summary of meeting category insights for users with a Viva Insights subscription. So you kind of have to pay more for this, but it highlights up to 3 categories in which users spent most of their time over the last 4 weeks. So you'll be able to look at it and say, oh, I spent over 40% of my time in team meetings. Do I really need to be meeting with my team that often? Or I spent 60% of my time with customer meetings. Is that the best use of my time? So I think being able to get that overall view percentage-wise of how you're spending your meeting time is a good thing.
That's why I color code my meetings on my Outlook calendar. These categories to color code them so I can tell what each thing is.
Yeah.
So I make sure I get in the right mix. So I make sure that most of my time is with clients.
Right.
It
took me a while before I got to that
color code my
point.
categories. All right, you guys want to move to launch? We only have 5 things here, so it's not a very long
Sure.
list. Tamara, you want to start us off?
I'll take the one thing. Microsoft
No.
Teams. There we go. I'm
I
killing him softly with
know.
new updates. All right. Microsoft Teams upload documents from OneDrive for business for e-signature approval. So when creating an e-sign request in approvals in Teams, users can now upload documents from OneDrive for business. This
Business?
is coming out worldwide and rolled out last month.
I'll go ahead and take the only other one that's not Purview or Admin Center related, and that is Firefox meeting support for outgoing screen sharing. So Firefox has always been really kind of the poor stepchild when it comes to doing meetings. There hasn't been a lot of support. So just recently they were like, Firefox now supports 2x2 gallery view. And I'm like, wow, we're up to 49 in these other browsers. Well, apparently you couldn't share your screen in a Firefox browser. Now they're going to actually do that, and it'll be out there for worldwide tenant and GCC. It should be out there now for you if you are a Firefox user.
So there was a couple DLP ones that were just small specific features of DLP that I'm not going to go into. I did want to mention, just because I thought this was cool and a sign of things to come for Microsoft. They have Microsoft 365 Admin Center configure your zero trust security model with a new guide. They're basically going through and adding a guide to their advanced deployment guides section that will basically outline what you need to do or recommendations around zero trust security strategy. You've heard us mention it a couple times on this show before, but zero trust is the standard that Microsoft is preaching towards and will be preaching towards for at least the near future. The idea behind zero trust is verify explicitly, use least privilege access, assume breach. It's basically the idea that you don't trust anyone, but that's being put forward as the new standard of what you do in security and IT, because that gives you a fairly aggressive scanning and an approach to how you do stuff. The fact that they're putting together guides to help guide customers through on how to do this who maybe don't have a forward-thinking CISO or maybe are just smaller and don't have those resources, I think is a cool and a good thing, and that should be out and launched now, which is nice to have. So there's only one canceled item, but I'll go ahead and mention it for us. Microsoft Teams pre-meeting breakout room creation and participant assignment for Teams on VDI. So we're specifically talking about virtual desktop environments. Organizers of team meetings on VDI can configure breakout rooms and participant assignments before the meeting starts. They basically said this item will be republished in the future if applicable. But again, this is a very small subset because we're only talking about virtual desktop environment users. So. And with that, that's been our pulse. Thank you for joining us, guys. We'll continue to go through and pay attention to updates. There will be maybe no show next week. We'll see. It's Thanksgiving. I don't know what everyone's plans are. We may have a show, we may not, but going into next week at the very least, I'm sure we're all off Thursday or Friday. So I don't know how many updates are going to be in the week too. We'll figure that out. So you guys may or may not see us next week, but until then, take care of yourselves. Enjoy the holidays if we don't do a show, and thank you so much for your time.
Bye now.
Bye, everyone.